Howdy there, Internet students. Mr. Hermson again. This is lesson 5.1b. In this lesson, we're going to learn how to backtrack to find either the radius or the diameter. Okay, and it kind of depends on what we're given. So we need to know the right formula. In this one, we're given the circumference. Now, our answer for the circumference, I'll put that here, circumference. We're going to get that by using this formula. Okay, so to get the circumference, we take the radius, and we're going to, whatever we're looking for, I'll put that in my first circle here. You take the radius and you multiply that by 2. That gives you the diameter, of course. And then you multiply that by pi, and that gives you the circumference. So we're going to work backwards, and I'll put those in red when I'm going backwards. To go backwards, we're going to divide by pi, and then we're going to divide by 2, and that'll get us back to the radius. So on my calculator, I'm going to put in 100.48, and I'm going to divide that by pi. I'm going to use 3.14 for pi today. And that gives me 32. That's this answer. I just divided that by pi. And now I'm just going to divide that by 2. And because right now I actually have the diameter, divide that by 2, and that's my radius. Now you might want to check that just to make sure you have the formula, the diameter times pi, so 32 times pi, 3.14, should equal 100.48. And it does. Okay. All right. On the second one here, we are just trying to find the diameter. And so I'm going to just put D there in the first one. And we're given the circumference. So we're going to use this formula right here. Circumference is diameter times pi. So if I take my diameter times pi, that gives me my circumference. And my circumference in this case is 43.96. So working backwards, I'm going to divide by pi. All right, so I'm going to take my 43.96 divided by 3.14, and that gives me 14. And that's my diameter. Okay. We'll have one more problem. That's when we're given the area. Now, the area formula is pi r squared. That's this one. Okay. So, and we want to find r. So you have to know the inverse. So r is squared. If you go backwards from that, it's the square root. To find r, you would do the square root of r squared. Square root of r squared equals r. All right? So if we have r, we are going to square it to get r squared, of course. So here's my r squared. And then we multiply that by pi. So we square it. So the second power. Actually put that there. And then times pi. And that equals 38.465. Now going backwards, I'll do this in red. We're going to divide by pi to start. Get that answer. And then whatever answer we get there, we're going to do the square root of that answer to get r. All right, on my calculator, that'll look like this. So I start with 38.465, and I divide that by 3.14, and that gives me 12.25. And now I need to do the square root of that to figure out what r is. So on my calculator, I'm going to do the square root. That was this button right here. And that gave me 3.5. So my r is 3.5. And you might want to just check that. So if you take 3.5, square it, and multiply by pi, make sure it equals that number. And I think it does. Now to find the diameter equals 2 times the radius. So all I have to do is multiply my answer here, 3.5 times 2. And so you multiply by 2 to get the diameter. So radius, which is 3.5, times 2 equals the diameter, which is 7. All right. So why don't you try one now? The circumference of a circular track is this number, 213.52. We want to find the distance from one side of the track through the center to the other side. That means all the way across, which is the diameter. Okay, so let's make sure you're using the right formula for that. That would be this one, circumference using diameter. So diameter times pi. Now if you want to set up, there's only 2 things to do, so you can find the answer using 2 circles if you like. You also might have noticed that when you're multiplying, we're dividing. All right, so maybe you want to just divide to get your answer. Give it a shot. All right, there's the answer there. We have the area here of 78.5. We want to get the radius and then the diameter and then the circumference. Let's first get the radius though. So radius squared times pi equals the area. So I'm going to do, this will represent my radius here. I'm going to square that to get this number. Then I'm going to multiply that by pi to get the area, which I know is 78.5. And so this is times pi, and this is to the second power. So just say r to the second. All right. So working backwards, you are going to want to start by dividing by pi, and then the way you undo a squared is you do the square root of whatever answer you get here, and that'll get you back to the radius. Go ahead and try it. All right, so I took my 78.5 and I divided it by pi to get 25, and then I did the square root of 25 to get 5, which is my radius. I multiplied my radius times 2 to get my diameter, and then I multiplied my diameter times pi to get the circumference. All right, on this one, we're given the area. Now, to get the area, you would take the radius, you would square that, and then multiply it by pi, and that's how you get this 265.9. Now, when we work backwards this time, we're going to use our calculator, so that'll look like this. 265.9 divided by, notice I pressed the pi button there, equals, now so I have that answer, and I can't really write that answer here, but it's about 84 point something. But anyway, I need to do one more step with that anyway, and that is the square root to figure out what r is. So I'm going to take the square root of that, and that equals about 9 point, let's round it to 9.20. All right, why don't you try the next one, see if you can figure out which formula you want to use, and see if you can get the right answer. All right, you should have taken your 12.125, divided that by pi, so I'm going to use the pi button this time, get that answer, and then you have to divide that by 2 when you're backtracking. So you get about 1.93 around to the nearest 100. Okay. So backtracking, you divide it by pi first, and then you divide it by 2. All right, we want to find this circumference, and we know the area. In order to do that, you're going to need to find the circumference. You either need to know the diameter or the radius. Since the area has the radius formula in it, you're going to end up with your radius, and then once you have your radius, you can go ahead and find your circumference. So I'll just set this up for you. Here's your radius. You're going to square that, and that's going to give you the first part, and then you have to multiply that by pi, and when you do that you will get the area, which is 58.1. So when you go backwards, you're going to have to divide by pi, and then you're going to have to do the square root of that answer to get back to the radius. And then once you get the radius, you can figure out what the circumference is using that formula. All right, give that a try. All right, so working backwards, I ended up with about 18.49 that I needed to take the square root of. So I found out the radius is about 4.3, and then using that with the circumference formula, I found out that the ball is about 27 inches. All right, that's it. You can just go ahead and try some of those on your own and see if you can figure them out, and we'll talk soon.